All right, y'all. Hello, hello.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
What's going on?
all, all right, y'all. We are so excited about tonight.
Yes.
It's going to be a great night.
Yes.
I think that you are going to learn a lot. We're all going to learn from each other. We're going to learn from Ericka, and we are so excited to be here. So,
Yes, indeed. So, welcome to our end of the semester Q&A with Ericka Young. Ericka is the author of the book that we have been studying, Naked and Unashamed. And we get to ask her a lot of questions about like why you name your book Naked and Unashamed.
take it off. Take it off.
So we hope you come. We hope that you come with your questions as well. So you'll have a chance to drop those in the chat. Also, you can go online and enter those as well. We have instructions in online and in the group on how you can do that. So yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. Hey, so we see some people. We see Aaron George is already joining us. Belinda White. I know Belinda was waiting on this, Ericka, so that she could get a chance to hear from you and talk to you. So we would love for you all just keep saying hi in the comments, whether you are on Facebook or you're on YouTube. We can see your comments, so leave those comments there. In just a second, we're gonna bring up a website if you have questions for Ericka and you want them to be anonymous. Like maybe you don't want your spouse to see this, like what you're asking, or maybe you don't want other people, you feel like you don't want them in your business, so you can leave those anonymously. Or if you don't care, you just want to get your questions answered, you can also drop those in the comments as well. But we'll put that up in just a second. So, but before we do, I am Kendra Tillman. I'm the other half of Daniel and Kendra Tillman. And
so I'm Daniel Tillman. I'm the other half of the other half. And we also have our co-partners in crime.
What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody?
Dennis and Angela Bullock, way
Hello,
down here
everybody.
in Florida.
Yes. In Florida, missing all our little Phoenix peeps. So hey, Belinda. Hey, Aaron. We miss you guys.
Miss you guys.
Yep. So good to be excited. Really?
Yeah. So the four of us, for people that don't know, the four of us have been on video all semester long with the couples that are a part of the marriage ministry who are in a marriage small group. And so every single semester we have a different book that we utilize depending on what our topic is. So our topic for this semester and next semester is money and marriage. And so that is how we ended up with Ericka. So each semester, in preparation for that, we have a book that the four of us go through together, and then we record videos for our members so that they have a video lesson, they have the book, they get to discuss the book with the people in their small group, and that's how those discussions go. And so what's so special about this particular semester is that, we got a little inside scoop because we actually know the author very well. Over 2 decades of friendship with this amazing woman. And we thought it would be such a blessing and such a gift for her to be able to answer whatever questions that you all may have had as you were reading through this book. So the way tonight is going to work is we're going to just have a conversation really quickly with Ericka, just to fill some of the other people in that maybe haven't read the book, don't know anything about the book. And then we are going to ask her some questions that the four of us have come up with. And then we want to make sure you get your questions answered. So in preparation for that, again, if you want to leave your question anonymously, what you can do is you can go to onlinequestions.org. You type in the code. Today's date is the code 11/28/2022. Okay. And you can put your question in. It'll be completely anonymous. We will check that and see what questions are being asked. And we'll know that those are some of the questions you're interested in. So before we get started with anything, Angie, Dennis, y'all got anything else you want to add to that?
Oh, no, I've just been hearing great comments from the small groups, how the dialogue and the questions have been. So you would think that talking about money would kind of be dry, but it surely has not been this semester. And so we've been hearing great things about some of the conversations that have been happening. So.
Right. Only thing I would say, I'm just happy we're talking about money. You know what I mean? It's like a topic that we need to talk about. Is, I think, number one or one of the number or top 3 reasons people get divorced. So I'm happy we're talking about money and trying to help people be team marriage, #team money. You know what I mean?
Especially during these times.
Yeah.
Yes. Because money is going to be a huge conversation that whether people want to have it or not, right now, you will be having that conversation, right?
Right. Exactly.
So now you have a guide, a way to help you with that. So, all right. So now we're going to bring Miss Ericka. We've been talking about her. We're going to bring her in.
What's up, Ericka?
Hey, oh my gosh, this is so great. I feel like this is reuniting and it feels so good.
Been knowing you forever. I can't say forever, but we've known you for a while.
A long time.
You and Chris before you got married. So
yeah, see, that's a long.
You knew them before we did. You knew Ericka before we knew her, right?
Yeah. Dennis did.
Yeah. I remember going down there when they had little get-togethers, going down to Chris and Chris's mother's basement.
Yes.
We used to all get together.
Yes, his birthday party. That's right. Oh my gosh. You know, that was
right when y'all got married. Like, I remember meeting y'all. Y'all was in the foyer. We was like, hey, much love. And then it was like, okay, no.
Yep. That's crazy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's 26 years, you guys. 26. Wow.
Yeah. So let me like real quickly give y'all just a quick brief bio of Ericka. So Ericka is the founder of Tailor-Made Budgets. And through her organization, she has served over 500 families as a certified financial coach during her 17 years in business. 17 years, y'all. So she has been helping families for almost 2 decades reach their money goals, reach their financial future that they're hoping for, right? So so you guys are talking about the friendship that you have with Ericka even predates way before all of that, right? So Ericka and Chris paid off nearly $90,000 worth of debt when they were getting started on their financial freedom journey. So I wanted to read that because I need y'all to understand that Ericka is not someone who is telling you just what she knows from her supporting her clients. But the reason why she started doing this work is because of the journey that her and Chris were on as well. And they have been married for 24 years, right? I got that right. See, I'm not even reading this from your website. I just need to tell you. They have been married for 24 years, and they are the parents of 2 young adult daughters. And one of the things I wanted to highlight about that is that their oldest, Faith, she recently graduated from college debt free. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. We got a kid in college right now. Let me tell you right now, that is a huge accomplishment.
Yes, that is.
Yes.
And they also have their other daughter, Olivia, is actually on scholarship in college right now. So we're gonna get into all of that in just a second. But I just wanted to give you like the foundation so you understand who it is that we're talking to, that she knows this for herself. So Ericka, would you I see some amens done. It's like amen. Vernon said amen. That's right. We all like amen to the debt freedom in college. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It's possible. So Ericka, what we would love for you to do just to kind of kick us off is just give everybody like a little bit of a highlight about who you are, the work that you do, how you got started, whatever you want to share with us to help us kind of have some context for the conversation we're about to have.
Okay, there we go. Well, you know what, Kendra, you were instrumental in me starting the business. So I was tooling around trying to figure out if I really wanted to help other people with budgeting and if this was actually a viable business. And one of the things that Kendra did was she dragged me. She made me go to a Women in Business boot camp. And we were there all day. I stayed to the panel at the very end. And I was very inspired by one of the women on the panel. She grew a business from nothing. And I really felt that that was the call that God had on my life as well, is to grow something from nothing. It wasn't like I was buying a building or a brick and mortar or selling actual products itself. Like I had to grow something from what I thought was my own imagination. And and to make something of it. And so Kendra believed that I could, and that was like the support that I needed at the time. But then also at that time, Pastor Moore, about a month and a half after we went to that Women in Business boot camp, he preached a sermon that said, "Do it scared." And I was petrified. I went home. I told my husband, I said, "Babe, I think this is what God is telling me to do. And honestly, I got to figure this thing out." But I was in the bed crying. I was shivering. He was holding me like it was a whole deal because it was stepping outside of my comfort zone. I really felt strongly that God was leading me to a place that was going to be uncomfortable. I was going to have to walk on the water. I was going to have to do it without knowing all the answers. And that is not how my engineering brain worked. And so, but I had to be obedient. And so that weekend is when I said, "All right, husband, I need about, $200 to get a logo. Let me get some paper. I need to make sure that I can send some letters out to everybody that I know that this is what I'm about to launch off and do." And we did that. And 6 months later, I actually left my job, not because I had all of the money to replace my engineering salary, but because this is what God told me to do. And then I haven't looked back. Engineering served its purpose in my life, and that career served its purpose. And now I'm doing this, and I really have not looked back. And today I spend more time working on financial wellness in the workplace because I want to be able to help more people. I want that one-to-many approach. I want to change a workplace. I want to impact credit unions, and I want to make sure that more people get a well-rounded view to their financial outlook. And so I'm so glad that you guys have decided to use my book. This is amazing. And I'm really glad that it's making an impact because it's my honest and true journey. And was it perfect? Absolutely not. But it was exactly what God wanted us to do. And so I'm really glad to be able to share that with you.
I'm happy that you're working with companies too. I saw you on my LinkedIn last week and I was like, a whole video. So I was like, let's stop work. I need to watch what Ericka's doing. And he's with credit unions and all these other places. That's so cool. And it just seems like it's like, wow, to be able to watch you kind of go from the beginning to where you are now, to me, it's inspirational to me too, because we always talk to about different things we want to do. And so it was really good watching that.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yes, and you definitely are having a one-to-many effect impact working through the FCC small groups as well, because all 100 or so of the folks that are in our group are either listening to the commentary that we do from the book, or they have the book and are reading it and are working through it as a couple. So you're impacting a lot of lives.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, and the book is 5 years old. And so when you were sitting down writing the book, so that was 5 years ago, at that point, I don't think you had reached the 500 families, but you saw enough patterns, right, in what you were seeing and working with families. So what was the thing that made you say, you know what, I need to write this book?
There were two things. One is, not everybody is going to become my one-on-one client, right? And so I wanted to have a tool that people can use even if they didn't work with me one-on-one. And that was, again, another way to do some of that one-to-many approach. I needed that as a resource when I would go speak places and have a takeaway for them. So that was one reason. But in particular, there was one client that came into my office that I'll never forget. And she was really having a hard time with talking about the debt, talking about how things got to where they were and all of that. And I asked her specifically, her husband was sitting right there, but I felt that this question was for her in particular. I said, have you forgiven yourself for everything that you've done with money that maybe wasn't in alignment or maybe wasn't exactly what your spouse wanted you to do? Have you forgiven yourself? And she just started crying. She just couldn't talk and she started crying. And her husband said, this was worth everything that we've done to do this coaching with you, because I never thought to ask her that question. And I think that it's a very valid reason as to why we had still been stuck. And I wanted to address more than just the numbers. That I think is very common for people to have a lot of money baggage from their money past and not to think about, how their money present is affecting their money future. And I just really felt like in that moment, if I could help people to reframe the way that they think about money management, I'm doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
We can't force people to start with the budget because not everybody is in the place where it's okay for them to do that. Like, I'm a nerd. I can totally start with the budget. Like, that's me. But my clients have taught me, even here recently, I had a client say, I don't know that I'm ready for that. And I'm glad she had the wherewithal to speak up for herself in that moment. And so we talked about other things that were holding her back from really making some good progress with her finances. And that was freeing. She even sent me an email and thanked me. And so I think to some degree, we could be doing it backwards, right? Like, don't necessarily start with the numbers, start with the other things that have gotten you there so that you actually have a foundation for good success when you're talking about money.
I'm very interested in hearing, because I'm like you. I can start with the budget, the numbers all day long. But I'm interested in you exploring that a little, or explaining that a little bit. Like, what are the things that hold people back or keep them from being ready to get to the numbers?
Yeah, I'll talk about myself. Honestly, I'll talk about my husband. I mean, honestly, he's not here. I can talk about him. But he will gladly share this information. I'm not sharing anything he would not say, but he came from a poor household. His mother didn't have a lot. And that's a part of his money story. That particular period in his life where he didn't have all the things he needed. He didn't know why they didn't have money. He didn't understand it when he was a child and he was coming up and all of that. And he now, for lack of a better way to put it, could be kind of a money hoarder. Like he doesn't want the insecurity of his past to catch up with him again, right? And so that's a part of his story that is not going to be solved or fixed with the budget.
Right.
It's going to be understood by me, his wife, so that I can understand, I can really deal with him justly and appropriately and like work with, we work with one another, right? So my idiosyncrasies, the things that have been holding me back as well, like paycheck to paycheck living. I am very used to you coming down to the very last wire of your dollar. Like it wouldn't occur to me, but prior to our financial journey, to actually have money set aside and saved up. I'm used to, this is what I saw. This is what I witnessed on both my mother and my father's side. They're divorced. Paycheck to paycheck living, where I heard messages like, wait till payday. I don't have it. I'm broke, that kind of thing. And so this is so important that we understand one another on that level, so that when we're having real conversations about dollars and cents, that he knows my vantage point, my sensitivity, or even the weakness that I have, and vice versa. And I'm not, discounting or reducing or minimizing where he is. And again, him as well with me. So I think that understanding one another on that level is really, really important.
I want to kind of piggyback on what Daniel said. And we talked about, I'm not ready for a budget yet, but what are some of the things that you've been noticing over the years? Why are people stuck? What do you see in this as you see people going through the transitions, you see the maybe undisciplined ways, all that type of stuff. But why do give me your top 2 or top 3 reasons why people are stuck?
I think they're doing it backwards, right? So one, they could very well be starting with numbers, and somebody in this party, somebody in the coupling is not ready for that, right? So that's the first thing. And I also think that we misunderstand what it means to get on the same page. The thing that I am talking most about now, and I say this year in particular, is there is a misunderstanding about what it means to be on the same page. It does not mean that you think the same. It doesn't mean that you behave the same with money. It doesn't mean that you are that somebody has to do it your way. It doesn't mean that there's somebody is right and somebody's wrong. The same page does not mean that you see eye to eye on everything. I have to make this super clear. Chris and I do not agree on everything. As a matter of fact, we are in the middle of a probably very big decision, some big decisions around money, and we are not seeing eye to eye. And it's funny how people think that they have to see it each other's way, or it's my way or the highway, or we've got to do it just this way. Like it's as if there is this right way, and that's what being on the same page means. And that's not true. You are two individual people. God made you uniquely and perfectly, and you are different. Right. So what I say is figure out what you each do well, right? So what are the things that you enjoy doing? I'm a money nerd. I love the budget. I have no problem with the budget. Let me do it. Let me do it. But the big picture vision is where my husband excels, right? And so I need, as a matter of fact, just today, he gave me big picture vision for something that I only saw minutely. It didn't have to do with money, but I sat there and I listened because it was the big picture it was the perspective, higher, bigger around, like farther out. And all I could see was that minute piece of it. And so he saw the big cake, and all I saw was that one scoop of brown sugar that was going in there, right? And so so he showed it to me, and I was like, okay, thank you. And because I excel at the budgeting and tracking spending and all of that good stuff, I can give him headlines. I'm really good at understanding what it is that he needs. He needs headlines. He is not interested in knowing that somebody went to Starbucks for $4.32, right? But he is, however, interested in making sure that we are achieving our big picture goals, right? And so I give him headlines. I'm like, babe, we got to do this. These are the 3 things we have to do. These got to be done by next week. Boom. He's like, all right, bet. I got this. And then on Monday, I'm going to do that. I'm like, that was easy. That money conversation took 5 minutes, right? But I didn't make him sit down and do the budget, right? Because that is not his forte. So getting on the same page sometimes means understanding what you each bring to the table, appreciating what you bring to the table, and maximizing, capitalizing on it so that you both win as a team. Not that you are saying the same thing all the time, doing the same thing all the time. That's not necessarily the goal, because if you chase that, you might be missing the big picture.
Right. I think that's so good, because I've seen couples where it's like one of the couple or the spouse is mad because they're like, I do all the budgeting and you don't do da 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 da. Or the other person's like, I'm doing this and this and that, and you're out here buying like crazy, you know what I mean? So it's really great to hear, like, wow, like, okay, so what are you good at? What are you good at? And us doing those together to reach our goal together is us being on the same page. I think that's a really great way of seeing it, because I would say I wouldn't even seen it like that. That's a great way of seeing it.
Yeah. And I think the other thing about it too is that we have to, I think we do need to have shared goals, right? But not everybody has the same goal all the time. Like right now, I have a goal that has absolutely nothing to do with my husband necessarily. Like I had a conversation with him about it. I told him, I said, this is very important to me. But he could care less. Honestly, that's not his goal, right? Like, this is my goal. He cares about me winning and succeeding. Therefore, he then cares about my goal, but it's not his goal. So I think the other thing is that we have to give each other the chance to dream, right? About what it is that you want, and then just to figure out how to make each other win with their dreams. And that is a part of getting on the same page.
That's good. I guess I would ask, what doing the book and all these questions, and then you talking about you and Chris having to get on the same page, which conversation was the hardest for y'all? Or was it just getting on the same page to start having the discussions? Or what was like, okay, because that's the thing I love about this book. I know, just like Kendra and Daniel, that you do this, like you've done this for your own self. And I feel like that's so important. It's like a doctor who smokes cigarettes. It's like, huh? You know what I mean? Yeah, that's so weird. You know, so I always tell people in counseling, I'm like, I'm a counselor who gets counseling. Like that's really important to me to share. So I know that you and Chris have had to walk down this road yourself. What was some of the hard conversations, or what was it trying to get on the same page for you two?
You know, what's interesting is this is partly why I wrote the book too, is because for us, it was trial and error. I mean, this book came after I had been in business for 10, almost 12 years. And so I realized what was necessary to help people on their financial journey, going through the journey, right? And so there were a couple of moments when Chris and I had conversations and I said, oh, I get it now. And I'm the coach. Thank you for sharing that with me. You know, like he would say something and I'm just like, I never knew that, or I never thought about it that way, or I never would have applied that to the finances. So for instance, I already shared with you how I kind of think he's a money hoarder. Like he prefers to have a whole lot more in cash than I think is necessary. That's the way that plays out. And so, but before we moved from Arizona to Indiana, he said, I think that we really need to save. And I'm like, okay, all right. And he was like, this is what I think we need to save. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then 6 months later, we found out we were going to be moving, and we literally needed all of that cash. It was at the bottom of the housing market. We were not going to get any money out of our house. And if we were going to buy a house in Indiana, we needed that money. We had no idea, but he knew that we needed to prepare for something. And I had to respect that. And then because it was his goal, I needed to make sure that I got behind that. Then when we saw why it was necessary, that made it much easier. But that's probably a recurring theme where it's like, okay, he doesn't want that financial money insecurity that he had from the past. And so he over prepares, which has turned out to be great. But I need that in my life because I'm the person. The funny thing is I'm the coach, right? And I'm the person who grew up in the feast and famine lifestyle. And it's super easy for me to fall back into that without some, without my support, right? Right. So that's, we need each other.
That's good.
So tell me about your clients when you first got started and your transition into how you help them. Well, I know you're not doing the one-on-one coaching today, but before you ended that, like just talk to me a little bit about like when you first started, how you would help clients versus what it evolved to, and as you learned throughout your business, how you started to change.
Yeah. So the very first time I started working with people, I went to their house. I went to their house on nights and weekends. And I would be able to see lots of things in their home. So that was at a different time when we felt safer doing things like that. And your financial advisor or your insurance guy might come to your house. And I was one of those people who help people with their budgets in their home. And so because I didn't have an office space. And there were times when I saw the hoarding, if you will. And I could tell if it was a lot of children's stuff, that's where they indulged. And so we would talk about that, right? Or if their home was, there's something to be said for their home being well put together, nothing is out of place, and the time and the money that it takes for that. And also if things were disheveled, right? I could see a lot. And so I don't have that vision. Yes, the wife was one of my clients. They were not one of the crazy ones, let me tell you. but that was the way it first began. my first office space was in my insurance office agent's office. He had a really tiny office. You had to stand up to open a door. It was that small. So if I wanted anybody in there, one, it got really, really hot in there. And so you wanted to keep the door open, but it just wasn't enough space. And then I moved from that to my own office with a financial planner, which was really neat, but I still was meeting people in person. And then when I moved, I had a lot of people that I kept working with virtually via phone and video and all of that good stuff. I do still keep about 10 clients right now. Actually, that's down from, I probably cut my client loading down by like 70% so that I can make space for the workplace wellness and corporate workshops and things like that.
So Ericka, so Belinda shared that they were $50,000 in debt. She posted that in the comments, so I feel like I can say it out loud. So when couples come in, when you're that deep in debt, what do you feel has been the most helpful part of them getting that additional support? Because yes, you can read a book. Yes, you can take classes, but you might feel that you really need some extra support. What do you find has been the most helpful part of them being able to come in when they find themselves in that much debt?
Yeah, a lot of people think they can't get out, first of all. And I'm a very hopeful person. In all of my time working with people, I can probably count on one hand the people who probably weren't going to get out of debt. Like they didn't have the thought processes that was required. And one in particular, she thought the way to just avoid all of this was to stay in college and continue to rack up student debt. Like she just didn't want to face it. And the other one that I can think of right off, they were so disorganized that they had probably 30 different libraries that they owed fees to. And so they were not interested necessarily in what we were up to in terms of the discipline required. So if you're not up for the discipline, you're not going to see the results. But I think the other thing that I find with clients that has been really valuable for me to see is when we do get down to the numbers and I can show them a path that they didn't see was possible. That's exciting. If I can explain multiple paths to their debt freedom, if I can show them that their budget will balance for the first time, because I can do if honestly, you give me a budget, I can work that thing up and down in about 15, 20 minutes. But I have to slow down to make sure that my client will understand what is necessary to happen for that to be their reality. And so when I'm able to show them a light path, like that dark tunnel opens up and there's light and you can see the finish line, that's huge. And I call it the debt-free date in the book. And I know you haven't actually gotten to the second half, but when you're able to actually see a finish line, that is incredibly helpful when you can see the light bulb go on and people are like, wow, that can really happen for me. Or, and it doesn't, the realization of that doesn't take, a year. It takes some weeks or a month in working with me to like look at what we need to look at, talk through some stuff. And then they're like, oh, this is possible. Oh, okay. She gave me a game plan. Oh, I have a roadmap. Oh, if I change this, this, and this, I can do it. Got it. Okay. So injecting hope is the fun part.
And is everybody that comes to you in debt, or are there other issues that people have come to you for to help them through?
90% of the people that come to me are in debt. But I do have people who are wanting to make certain they want a second opinion about what they're thinking about doing, right? A lot of times if that 10%, they're like, should I retire? Is now the right time? Or am I going to have enough money? I just want to have an understanding. I'm not an investment advisor, so I don't do stocks. I don't carry the security licenses and that kind of thing. However, if they're wanting that second opinion to say, am I going to be okay? A lot of those people will come to me, or they'll say, here's my game plan. What do you think? Right? They might be in debt and they're savvy enough to know how to do this, that, and the other. They just want that second opinion. So, or they need the accountability. I actually have a client right now that I've been with for a very long time. It's the accountability. And it's like, okay, so Ericka is going to come in with her perspective on what we're up to, and she's going to give us a new way to think about this, or help us to understand how to navigate these seasons of life. So, yeah, accountability, and they want that second opinion if they're a part of that 10%.
So, in the last probably year or so, Daniel and I, we're part of the premarital counseling team at church. Angie and Dennis have been doing counseling for a long, long time with couples. And I'm curious. I always think about you when this comes up. Do you advise new couples to combine their finances right away? So that's the first question. So I'll let you answer that. So what is your thoughts about new couples? So newly married, or they're engaged and about to get married. Do you advise them right off the bat to go ahead and combine their finances?
It depends. I do believe that you are displaying the highest level of unity when you combine your finances into one account.
Mm-hmm.
That is the highest, in my opinion, the highest level of unity with your money. It's transparent,
Right.
and there are no secrets, and that requires trust. The reason I say it depends is because not everybody is ready for that right away.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it shows up when it's a second marriage, or you have been a person who's been working in the workforce for 20 years and this is your first relationship, and you're like, hold on a second. Like, sometimes we have to work with where you are to get you to the place where your money is combined and unified.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that having that level of patience with each other is really important. And then also just with the process. So, and I do actually detail that out a bit in the book as well. When we talk about being one, becoming one, that is a part of it. And that requires some work. There's some steps to go through. Like, you have to change payroll deductions, right? You got to, figure out which account is going to be, whose account is going to be. And you need to almost set some ground rules on how this is going to work. Again, especially if you are someone who has been in the workforce for a while, had your own money, or had another relationship previously where money was combined, or you had intermingled finances. And I think having some patience there is important, with the goal towards unifying your finances.
So I'm gonna ask that question in reverse.
Do
you ever advise people that have an account together
to split it up?
Split that up.
I actually haven't, and that's a really good question. I haven't. I actually have had clients who have divorced, or who have separated, and obviously that is the wise thing to do. But I have not said it. They have made those choices themselves. So I am for marriages working, for relationships going the distance, for making sure that you stay unified. But the one time where I would say, if I were to advise it, because typically what I'll say is, here are your options and you get to choose, right? And I much prefer that. And usually if people are divorcing or separated, there's one person talking to me. They're not both on the phone anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening anymore. So I ask questions. But the biggest reason why, there's two reasons, but there's the biggest reason why you would want to separate finances is because of mismanagement of funds and things aren't getting paid. If you are, if the four walls, your food, clothing, shelter, transportation, cannot get taken care of because someone is mismanaging the finances, then we probably need to separate those. So I will explain that and have them make the decision. And then the other reason that you probably was separated is in the event that the relationship is crumbling and someone needs dollars to be able to move forward. So I'll just ask questions and let them come to their conclusions on how they proceed.
Mm-hmm. Well, with us financial, doing premarital counseling, the good thing, we do use a tool called Symbis, and at this certain point when they get to their finances, we actually have a financial coach that comes in. We don't do it ourselves. They actually set up a meeting with a financial coach, and he goes through all the dynamics. I had a question that we have prepared. It said in there financial identities. Can you explain a little bit about that? What is financial identities?
Who you are with money. Right? Like, so there's a lot of ways that people can talk that through, right? So there could be the spender, the saver, there could be the free spirit, the hoarder, you know what I mean? There's a lot of different ways people decide to talk about what a financial identity is. I don't necessarily feel like you actually have to label folks. I think we need to understand. I'm using this term more now, is your money story, right? It's who you are with money because of your past, where you are right now, and where you want to go. Right. So your story tells a more complete picture than a word on your identity, if you will. And there have been times where I was the free spender and my husband was not, like, and vice versa. And so I think that, and I'm definitely a money nerd, so I can take that label, but I also don't want people to be put into a box because of that.
Right.
Because we change. I was a nerd for a long time until I started liking clothes. And I got expensive real quick to the point where I had to have a conversation with my husband and say, okay, honey, what's my limit? Because I don't think I actually had a clothing budget like myself, like separate from the family. And I was like, I actually think I need that. I asked for a healthy boundary because I needed it. And so I changed from being a nerd to a free spirit when it came to that stuff. And then I had to, I said, well, this isn't right. This isn't healthy. I need a healthy boundary. Help me with that.
I have.
Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned earlier mindsets. What would you say are like maybe the top 3 mindsets that are needed to get out of debt?
Woo, okay, first of all, we got to leave the money, we got to leave the scarcity mindset behind, right? There is more than enough for everybody to have everything that they need. Period, hands down, point blank. We believe God. We do what we need to do in the natural. And we leave the scarcity mindset behind. So that isn't going to serve you. And if you find that there are areas in your life where you tend to see that mindset creep up, that's something to deal with. Journal, think it through, talk it through, ask questions of those around you about, like, where, so that you can understand where that's showing up and what's triggering that. So let's leave that behind. And on the opposite end of that is abundance mindset, right? So there's more than enough to go around. There's more than enough, not just money, but resources, talent, energy, gifts, skills. I think that we have a single-minded vision, typically, of money, the dollars and cents. But if you use your gifts, skills, talents, and abilities, then you can have an abundance of money too, right? Like, if you use what God is giving you, then you can actually have more than enough, right? So anyway, so abundance mindset is super important. The other thing that I will say, and this isn't necessarily like in the book, but I think that we have to not take ourselves so seriously. And so we don't want to stay in a fixed mindset, right? That we can change. There are moments and seasons in our life, And if we can have not just a growth mindset, because that's like a corporate term, fixed versus a growth mindset, but just know that something different is possible tomorrow. This is where you have your hope. This is where you have your faith. And that keeps you moving forward. So don't fix yourself somewhere and get stuck. That type of mindset is not going to serve you well.
That's good. Ooh, can I ask one more question really quick?
Yes.
So let's say you had somebody, I don't know, the wife or the husband, it doesn't matter, but they just like blew a ton of money and the spouse is super upset. But how do you help them like rebuild that trust and also that respect for the spouse who blew it all?
You're not talking about us.
No, I'm not.
Why are you bringing that up, Angie?
I'm actually thinking of somebody that we're counseling.
You know what? Okay, so first of all, I call that financial infidelity, and there's other books. I touched on it slightly in the book, but I will say that that could be a whole thing. Spending money behind the back of your spouse and then having to come clean. That is definitely not a money conversation. This is a trust conversation. This is a marital issue. This is a breakdown in the structure and foundation. And it requires time, patience, and accountability. And so where you have, obviously with time, just don't think that this is going to happen overnight. One, getting out of debt cannot happen overnight. So getting out of debt doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And being faithful with your actual accountability, I think that you have to put up some guardrails, right? I actually think that you have to make sure that there are healthy ways that you are communicating with one another and being held accountable. So you probably will have to bear it all for a season for the proof, right?
Yep.
That's the thing. And so that's when you're looking at credit card statements or you're looking at bank statements and you're having these accountability meetings. It's not about shaming or blaming or any of that. It is loving people so that they can come to a higher place and more unified place in the relationship, right? So I think it's the way that we term it. It's going to take some time, but I think that we have to make sure that there are healthy boundaries. So there needs to be oversight, and you need to do that as a team. So I think that, you say, hey, so this is what we need to do now. We need to make sure that when we have our money meetings, we're looking at the statements. We're not just looking at the total. We're looking at the individual things. It doesn't take that long. There are a couple pages maybe or whatever, and you look at it together. These are things that you do together. There is nothing behind the scenes anymore. And not that, I think the term you use is accountability, and you make sure that you're working as a team versus you are doing things behind people's back, right? We're not trying to do that. So we're just trying to make sure that there is a safe space, to be honest, and then also checks and balances. That's what it is. It's checks and balances.
That's good. Thank you.
So, Ericka, in the book, you shared that according to FICO, financial responsibility beats out sex in sustaining a marriage relationship. As a matter of fact, the survey respondents said financial responsibility was two times, y'all, as important as sexual compatibility. So why is financial responsibility such a big deal in marriage?
Well, think about it. Think about how easy, and I'm going here, okay? Think about how easily people hop into bed with other folks, right?
Yeah.
People do that so easy.
Yes.
And or and maybe even we don't even have to go that far, right? People are physical. They are they will do those things much more easily, and it will take years to disclose your annual salary or to share a FICO score, right? Or to look at a credit report, right? These are like we have such shame, we have fear, we have over protection over our money, over what we've done with money, and it is a very vulnerable place. And so if you can't get okay with you and what you've done, good, bad, indifferent, then you definitely can't get to the place where you can share with somebody else. And that's why in the book I said, get real with yourself, right? Make sure that you have that moment with you so that you're clear, and then share with your spouse, right? Because if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't bring your spouse into this conversation yet. Get honest with yourself. Journal it out, talk it through, take a video. I don't know what you need to do, but figure out where your hangups are and then share. And I think a lot of people, we have it backwards. We simply have it backwards. People are willing to take their clothes off, marry somebody before they even have talked about money. And it's just baffling to me. And so here's the thing. I just think society doesn't prepare people for the fact that money touches every aspect of your life. Society makes it super easy for you to think that sex rules everything. And if you're sexually compatible, then great, awesome. They make that look like the Holy Grail. And even in the church, it can be hard for people. The only time you hear, sometimes in the church, the only time you hear about money is when you're talking about tithing. You don't talk about anything else, nothing else. And God forbid you talk about sex, right? Because, and so we think about, if we can't talk about this stuff, then we're not going to be successful, period. Right. And so if you sweep things under the rug, that rug is gonna have a big lump in it. Right?
It's gonna be lumpy.
You're gonna be tripping over yourself. The dog gonna be falling all over you. The furniture is gonna be on its side. I mean, honestly, so let's talk about it.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
I think it's coming out of denial too, because I think for some people, especially in the Black community, when we don't want to talk about stuff, or we were raised not to talk about stuff, we like, it's under that rug. And I know it's a bump, but we just gonna act like it's not there. Everybody over it, right? But it's like at some point, like, let's just pull the rug up and clean up.
Well, and we're also not equipped to have conversations that are effective.
Yes.
We are not equipped, right?
Yes.
And so if we don't have the proper techniques to have a good conversation around money, around sex, around kids, around in-laws,
right,
we aren't going to be successful in that conversation. But and that's kind of why, like, my husband and I have been having we have these conversations. It's not like we have these conversations all the time, but we had a conversation just in the last couple of days. And I'm really glad that he said, hey, this is what we need to talk about. And so we talked about it. Then he brought that third party into that conversation. So we got on the same page. We got clear. And then we can share with somebody else. When we're talking about our kids and their college education or whatever, we're like, let's make sure you and I see eye to eye here, or let me hear your perspective, or what do you think about this? Before we bring those kids into this conversation.
right.
And if he and I can have already had our conversations or understand one another in that way, it is going to be so much better when we then have to share that confidence or that perspective with someone else.
I wanted to ask a question because that was one of the exact questions I was going to ask you, that how money touches so many aspects of our life and how we see it as a tool. But what are some of the things that you see now, doing this for 17 years, seeing how our economy is going? And I guess a lot of us are feeling it. We've gone through these trends before, but I'm thinking about the younger folks who listen to us talk about money, or might be listening to us, what are some of the trends that you see that are is it the same process that you see that's going on, that people are being destructive in some of their behaviors and some of their disciplines? Or are you seeing something like at this point where we're at now, after I've been doing this for 17 years, I'm really concerned about this?
I'm really concerned about student loans, period, hands down. I'm really concerned that parents are allowing their children to make independent decisions about the most expensive part of their lives. A child has not, an 18-year-old has not managed more than $1,000 or $2,000 total because they had a little summer job or whatever. And then you want them to make $100,000 decision? Excuse me, no. Right. So I think that is a breakdown I have to say it this way. It is a parental breakdown because we haven't properly prepared our children. Also, because we haven't properly prepared ourselves. So it is really important for parents to be very clear about how they can and cannot participate in helping with college. But I get very concerned about college and the amount of money that people decide to spend on it. It is completely unnecessary. And I just had to go through this with my daughter, my youngest daughter. She, that's a whole story. She got no money from her top choice, $0. She's the kind of student who also in the same breath got all monies paid from another university. And so it was very hard for me. And I did not tell her she couldn't go to that university, but I showed her the numbers. We had rational conversations. We did also have tears because it didn't make sense for us to sell a home for her to go to college. Right. Like what we're not going to do. Right. Is put ourselves in a dire situation when there is this really great university who wants to pay your entire way. But we gave her facts and she made the decision. It was not easy and she's happy. That's all I can say. That's the biggest thing that bothers me. Some of the smaller foxes that happen right now, I know a lot of people are worried about the economy. One of the biggest things that I'm saying right now is inflation is 8.5%. There's nothing anybody can do about this right now in terms of changing that number. You can change your own personal economy though, right? So the way that I'm teaching this is how can you change your income or your outgo by 8.5%, right? So let's get savvy with money management and increase your income and or decrease your outgo, right? So you can increase your income by 4%, decrease your outgo by 4%. Hey, we're weathering this storm, right? So let's get creative, right? So businesses can be birthed out of seasons like this. The other thing, the small foxes that I'm speaking of right now, and they're not really small, but they're the things that I think are budget busters in this current season. And one is dining out. Even during the pandemic, people were, Uber eating it up. And we got they've made it super easy for us to say yes to things that I deem are probably unnecessary. I mean, we need food. Do we need to dine out? That's not a need, right? The next thing is subscriptions. Our subscriptions have gone out the crazy. A lot of people don't even know how much their subscriptions are adding up to. I had one client, we added it up at the very beginning of the pandemic, and they had about $150 in subscriptions. And I'm not talking their cable or, I'm talking about subscriptions. They had kids and they had all these little $10, $8, $7 things, right? So they were able to cut that down by 2/3. And then the third thing, good old Amazon.
Leave us alone. Mind your business, Ericka.
Amazon is killing us.
Oh, no.
It's killing us. So two things. So here's the deal with all of it. I don't think you should say no entirely to dining out or cut all of your subscriptions down to 0 or even cancel Amazon. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying add it up. Add up how much you're spending at Amazon for the month. And even Amazon has these tools where you can look and see what you spent for the month, right? Look and see. And then figure out what it is that you're actually buying. Like, look at it. What are you spending the money on?
Mm-hmm.
Is it convenience? Is it a need? Just get clear on what it is, because if some of it is groceries, great. Then we need to make sure that's a part of the grocery budget as long as it's getting used. If it's personal care or if it's clothing, start knowing and getting familiar with what it is so that you can do something about it. Because, if you don't know what it is, if you can't face what it is, then you can't do anything about it either.
Now that you mentioned Amazon, I was listening to a podcast the other day on finances, and it was about couples. And one of the really big issues was just that couples run into is honesty. Sometimes it's hiding money, but other times it's Amazon. The wife or the husband got this addiction to Amazon, and they will redirect the Amazon to the store down the street, right, to the locker, because they didn't want the other spouse to see all the packages come into the house.
Well,
they didn't want to let it go. Have you encountered this?
That's extreme.
Wow.
That's extreme.
Wow.
No, I haven't encountered that, but I will tell you, if you have to go to those measures, you are doing too much. You are doing too much. Honestly. And so if your life is more complicated because of how you spend money, that's a clue.
That's good.
Right? Like, we want things to simplify, not get more complicated, right? So if you got to go down the street, you got to go to your neighbor's house, you got to go send somebody an email from a different email account. You know what I mean? Like, come on, right? If you got to hurry up and go to the mailbox to make sure that, no.
She said you're doing too much.
You're doing too much.
Oh, man.
That is not God.
That's hilarious. Ericka, I wanted to ask you, I know you said you're moving more towards corporate and things like that. If we have anybody in the audience who's like, hey, I need a coach or whatever, do you maybe have, I don't know if you're still open, but maybe do you have a list you could provide us for people who might ask for that, for people you might suggest if you're not meeting with individuals who like other people you might suggest for people for coaching?
I actually do have some folks that I could potentially send folks to. I do have my Beyond the Budget course that I'm still offering, and that does come with a 1-hour session with me. So that is the way that I'm doing coaching. I'm not offering like the long-term private coaching, that kind of thing, but I am still offering the course, which you can do self-paced. But I know plenty of coaches. And so, depending on the needs, that I could certainly refer folks if you're looking for someone, I would say long-term. So I was doing coaching for 6 months. And so there are definitely people that I know if you wanted to do some private one-on-one coaching.
Okay. So short-term, hit you up. Long-term. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry, Angie. I cut you off.
No, all I said was thanks for clarifying.
Oh, okay. So Ericka, you have adult children, and we're in that season as well. Kids getting to that point where they need to budget, they need to figure out, how to manage their finances. What are some tips you give to parents that are trying to transition their children into this place, and going through some struggles?
Yeah. Give them a set amount of money per month when they are. We started at 16, maybe 15. But really, when they needed gas money, they were going out with friends. I wanted them to have autonomy over some cash with the debit card and to get used to doing that kind of stuff. I did not want them coming to me every weekend for another $20. That's it helps your own budget, and it also helps them to budget, right? They learn that there is a finite number. So you can't go to Dairy Queen 12 times, on this budget, right? So I think that, give them autonomy over some cash at a younger age. And then when they get to college, give them a bit more. One thing that we're working through right now, we've been through 2 months with our daughter where she's adding up all of her expenses so that she can see by category dining out. In her case, it's Target. That's her thing. Where she is, that's where she spends her money. And just have them add it up so that they can actually see. And it was surprising for her. She was like, "Oh, I spent that much money." She had no idea. She spent $398 in a month, right? And so you add it up, and then it's a reality check for them. And also for the parent, it's good to know, like, are you giving them enough, or do they need to get a job or whatever at whatever phase of life, right? So in high school or in college or what have you, you want to give them some autonomy over some money, and then also help them decide, does it make sense to get a job, and how can you mitigate this a little bit?
Good stuff.
All right. So I think that for the most part, I think we've answered the questions that we wanted to answer. Ericka, we want to thank you so much for your time. We want to thank you so much for following through on what God put on your heart to do, because it has been such a blessing and such a gift to so many couples. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity, if you would, if there's anything else that's on your heart that you want to share as an encouragement to people that are maybe like they're just starting to have these conversations with their spouse. What we found out is that there's couples that's been married like 10, 15, 20 years, and they're just now having these conversations. Or people, maybe they haven't been married that long, but these are hard conversations for them to have because it's more than the numbers, like you said, right? It's so much more than that. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to encourage them, whatever God puts on your heart to share.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you need to know that I probably wasn't having these kind of conversations with my husband until 10 years into doing this work. Right. And that's when I started realizing that there was a book inside of me to share. So I too struggled at first and didn't have the tools because people didn't typically talk about that kind of stuff. So give yourself a break, give yourself some grace. And most of all, be patient, right? Be patient with yourself as you process things. Be patient with your spouse as you process with them. If you are engaged or you want to be in a relationship at some point, have many money conversations. Literally talk about little stuff. Talk about why people tip. Talk about, the gift at work. Talk about, just little stuff so that money is not taboo. It is natural. And that will be very helpful. The biggest thing I can say for couples right now who are really trying to understand how to do this is, one, set the tone. Like if you need a candle, you need, some chocolate, you need some mood music, set the tone, make this conversation, like set the atmosphere, right? So, and frankly, not for very long. I don't think your conversation should be more than 15, 20 minutes, to be honest with you. Don't try and have a day-long money summit. That's what we're not going to do. That's what we're not going to do. Plan for 15 or 20 minutes. To this day, I ask my husband, babe, do you have 15 or 20 minutes? Or when do you have 15 or 20 minutes? And keep it short. And make sure that you're hitting on the most important parts. If you have one question that you get to in that time, that is progress. That's progress. And then set your next time that you're going to have another 15 or 20 minutes, right? You can go to dinner and y'all can have y'all one-on-one time, but don't spend an entire hour talking about money. Don't do it because you're going to wear somebody out. If you are married for the long haul, you got time.
Amen.
That's so good. Yes, I totally agree. It's like we get a sense of urgency about things and we act like, well, we have to remember we have our whole life, hopefully in the name of Jesus. I declare it over every marriage. You got your whole life to figure this out together.
Yeah.
And so it's okay. It's okay.
A little bit at a time.
Yeah, a little bit. And I honestly think that keeps it interesting, keeps it intriguing. You know what I mean? That keeps it from being born. There's always something new to explore and to uncover and to experience with your spouse. And so that's a part of the spark, right? So, I mean, honestly, treat it like you would when you get naked with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you do that regularly? I'm gonna need you. Listen, talk about money regularly. That's it.
Amen. Amen.
I'm just saying.
Do it again.
Amen. 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 Amen.
And amen again.
So, y'all, Ericka's book is Naked and Unashamed. 10 money conversations every couple must have. We highly recommend this book. So whether you are in a small group or not, we don't get the book, y'all. Get the book, read it. 10 conversations with your spouse. Ericka has a section at the end of each chapter where she, again, what she said earlier, get real with yourself first. Then you can have a conversation with your spouse. So we just thank you so much.
Let me see that book.
Sure.
We have a few signed copies of this book.
Yes.
Those of you who are here in the Valley with us, if you want a signed copy, just let us know and we can make that available to you.
Especially if you're coming to our marriage event on December 17th. So we'll have some signed copies there. Yep. So, well, Ericka, we want to thank you so much. We want to thank you all for watching and being so attentive and so engaged in the comments. This has been a great conversation. Do you have anything else you want to share?
Oh, thanks for joining, Ericka. Thank you so much for the book, for just allowing us to have some of your time tonight. We really appreciate it. We know that it is your pleasure. It is our pleasure. And we loved every bit of it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This was fun. And I'm honored, very honored that you chose my book. I don't take it for granted. I don't, take it lightly that you were going to utilize my material. I really appreciate that. And I'm so grateful to God in particular that it's making an impact, because that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Yes.
Most definitely.
It is.
Angie, Dennis?
No, I'm just proud to see the process, and also, even at my age, I am thankful to really see that what you've done is still something that I need to, I want to do in my life. Not necessarily financial coaching, but there's still a dream on the inside of me, and I feel like I want to do it scared. And you have been an awesome example of somebody who has gone through that process, and that you're not only your book, but this video and everything that you do around people speaking volumes and encouraging people to step out and do what God has called them to do.
Awesome. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm doing some stuff scared right now. Okay. So next level stuff is happening, but I'm scared too. And it's going to be all right.
Amen. Amen.
All right, y'all. So we hope this will just be the beginning. This won't be the ending. This is for you. This has been a way to help equip you to have those conversations. Share this video with other people, with other couples, singles. I see some of our single friends are on here. So it just share the information that you have learned. Yeah.
Share the heck out of it. On your wall. Everybody needs to hear this conversation.
Yes.
Ericka is changing the world.
Yes. One budget at a time.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Who knew?
All right. Good night, y'all. Sexy. Thank y'all for joining us.
She said, who knew a budget could be sexy?
Come on. Take it off.
Thank you, Ericka.
Thank you.
Good night, y'all.